Welcome to the Friends of Delray, a diverse group of Delray Beach residents coming together to build a positive city environment which is open and transparent. Our goal is to inform, share, and unite. Learn about what's happening in our village by the sea, from our pristine beaches to the corridors of City Hall. Hi, I'm Judy Malika, moderator for Friends of Delray, and a concerned citizen willing to ask the tough questions of our informed guest and dig deep into the issues relevant to the future of our wonderful city. Today we have with us Kurt Jetta, and we're going to be discussing MCHU, which stands for Micro Communal Housing Units. Kurt Jetta is the president of Jetta Investments. He has a PhD in economics. Me too, just kidding. Founder of Tabs Analytics and Consumer Analytics. So, Kurt, can you explain what MCHU means?
So, micro communal housing units are what used to be thought of as single room occupancy, basically apartment-sized rooms where each 4 units shares a bathroom, there's shared kitchen, but they all have the privacy of their rooms as well as all the communal spaces as well. The benefit of it is it's a much, much more affordable option than any other housing option out there.
So by housing option, is this a model that exists somewhere, or are you sort of coming up with it?
So after I sold my analytics company, Tabs Analytics, I invested in affordable multifamily housing. And one of the buildings I bought just so happened to have this structure already. It was the Thomas Kemp building over in the West Atlantic area of Delray on 5th Avenue.
Okay.
And so there were 7 units there. It's been in that format since 1960. It's been a successful model. People have lived there. They've enjoyed it. We have a lot of longtime residents there. 5 of the 7 residents of this form of housing were former homeless before they moved in. So, I just saw that there was this major benefit to this option being out there for people that don't make a lot of money, and really just saw a pretty decent need and an opportunity to expand on that concept.
So you've purchased the one in Delray on Northwest 5th, right?
Correct.
Do you have any other models like this in any other city or something similar?
No, there's nothing else like that specifically. All our other units are skewed toward affordability. So our target market is an audience that nobody really talks about, people making less than $35,000 a year. So if you talk to, say, the county commissioners, when they talk affordable housing, they're talking housing for people making $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a year. Nobody is really doing anything to address, a fairly low income sector. And I'm from the analytics area, and so there's some great stats that I like to cite when I talk about the need. First of all, these forms of housing are for non-family, so it's not appropriate for a family. So
Okay.
It's not for kids, it's for people that are single or whatever. So 41% of those people make $35,000 or less. So 1 in 5 residents of Delray Beach fit that profile.
Serious?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's 1. 2 is, if you look then at people making less than that, the affordable housing as defined by the U.S. Housing and Urban Development is about $1,400 a month for a studio. The level that can be afforded by people in each of the 35, 25, 10 is well below that. If I'm making $15,000 or $25,000, I'm at least 40% below where I need to be able to afford that.
1,400.
So what do we see then? That's the third big stat, is of the people making less than $35,000 a year, 5 out of 6, 83% in Delray Beach are spending more than half of their income on housing, on rent. I mean, that's a staggering statistic. And again, it's not something people talk about. They talk about the averages or kind of the fireman, teacher segment. Definitely a need.
Right.
But we're talking about people that are either retired, on a fixed income, they're disabled, veterans, or people just in low-wage jobs. They all need affordable places to live, and so that's what this option does.
So otherwise, I mean, if they can't even almost get that 1,400, so otherwise they would be homeless. Is that accurate?
Correct. They're either homeless or they're living in some small or unregulated housing structure. So a lot of rooming houses that are, probably illegal based on, so they're living in those types of rooms. And a lot of them live out of their cars. So the traditional definition of homelessness is, somebody, sleeping on the street. There's a lot of people that either live in cars, they live in, say, a hotel room for a couple days, and they kind of have a more migrant type of lifestyle. I mean, that is a very big sector of our population that, again, nobody really talks about.
Wow. I know that Ariana Ciencio, is that how you say it?
I believe so.
She works in the police department, and she's community outreach or community.
Yeah, for homeless. Yes.
She helps a lot of people that are homeless kind of find a place, God willing. And I reached out to her to get a feeling for what it was that you were doing there. And she said she had placed a couple people. And one of them was a woman whose husband passed away, who the Social Security just wouldn't cover rent.
Right.
And so she was lucky enough to be able to be placed there. I don't know if she's still there. And this was like an 80-year-old woman.
Yeah, so she's not there anymore. I think she moved out a year ago. So again, I've only owned that building for 2 years. Okay. It's been in existence for 60. Wow. So it's been that format for quite some time. It really turned the corner as being kind of a well-run, stable environment when Delray Housing took over as property management. That was about 5 years ago.
Oh, so they are taking over his house, and Correct. So that's the regulatory body?
Well, they don't really regulate. They just, that is their constituency. They know that group of people. That's their mission, is to place and to service people that don't make a lot of money. So they have a property management arm that manages this property as well. And so since they've managed it, we haven't had any crime at all. Mm-hmm. So, and it's something I track every week because I know people are reasonably and justifiably concerned about it. I mean, there's a lot of stereotypes, but not everybody that makes low income is a criminal. Not everybody does drugs. There's a lot of people that just don't make a lot of money. They're in low wage, and again, they need an affordable place to stay. So they do a good job at vetting prospective tenants to make sure that these tenants are reliable and don't have a criminal background and those types of things. And then they also have a very strict set of standards on how the building needs to be maintained before they place people.
Got it. I think we've become so rich in this country that we tend to not see somebody that maybe makes that amount.
Right.
And then certainly not think about how they survive or can survive. I know you're an analytic guy,
yeah.
And you've got some graphs to take a look at. So we're going to put a graph up, and graph number 1, can you explain that? What does all that mean?
Yeah, so this is kind of the stats I was talking about earlier. So
okay.
The 41% are not, making below $35,000. That's the non-family housing. Then if you compare, okay, so those people in those groups, what can they afford?
So this is graph number 2.
So yeah, so if you look at, say, people making $25,000 a year, mm-hmm. they can afford, if they spent 40% of their income on rent, they could afford $800 a month. A typical studio in Delray is $1,400. So there's a gap of 40%. So what do? They're either homeless or, that's the third graph, they're spending just an extraordinarily high amount of their income on rent. In fact, 5 of 6 people making less than $35,000 a year are spending more than half of their income on rent. And again, people that make more than that, look how low that is at all the other income groups. Mm-hmm. So people really can't appreciate or empathize with what this group of people is going through. And there's a lot of them. It's not a narrow sector. It's 1 in 5 people in our community.
So how do you, so right now, I've been in the building. Right now, there's not a shared kitchen, right?
Correct. That's what we're trying to, yeah.
There's bathrooms shared. So, and then first of all, you said about they can afford, the average is 1,400, they can afford maybe 800, but what is it that?
It's right now it's 550. So the range we're trying to keep it in is $500 to $600 a month.
Okay. And what is your vision for improving that?
The vision is to, yes, because you use the example of the elder person over 80 years old. There's no elevator there either. And so we'd like an elevator. We'd like to be able to have a kitchen that they could use. We want to upgrade the security, even though it's a good, secure environment. Again, no crime. It's still, there's concerns. You don't want people that don't belong there to get in, so we want all the latest technology and scan. Just aesthetically, it's a 60-year-old building that we definitely have some ideas to make it conform to the historical nature of the district, because it is in a historic district. Very prominent historical district. We want to have a tribute to the founder of that building. He was a prominent businessman in the West Settlers District, Thomas Kemp. So we're going to have some artifacts and some of his early papers and pictures as well. So it's going to be something that adds.
It exists.
Yes.
But if you try to make it prettier, it's non-conforming you? What is the?
Yeah, so it's called, the status is called legal non-conforming. So it's basically grandfathered in before the zoning code was changed.
If you do anything, then
So if we wanted to do something significant,
okay,
we would have to conform. And what does that mean? Well, there's 10 units there now. There's 3 regular apartments, 7 of the MCHUs. We could only have 2. So we'd have to kick out 8 people if we wanted to just upgrade without expanding.
What do you mean there's 10 but 7 of the H?
So there's 3 are regular apartments. There's 2 expanded studios and there's 1 2-bedroom apartment on the lower level, and then the upper level of the MCHUs, those apartment size units. So again, if we were to just upgrade, I want the kitchen, I want the elevator, but I'm not allowed to expand the number of units, I can't do that. I have to then, well, it's expensive, and I'd have to reduce the number of units because the zoning for that would only allow 2 units. And we have 10 now, so.
Oh, so you'd have to go down from 10 to 2?
Right, so that's not, I mean, that's just not, that's a non-starter from a, investment or profitability standpoint. And so I want to help people, not hurt people by kicking them out, so.
Well, what does that do if they have buildings that are older that they don't allow improvements to even happen without having to change the nature of it? Does that keep things like blighty?
That's a big issue. Well, that's a big issue, not just in Delray, but I would say almost every community in our country. My daughter went to Cal Berkeley, and they call that shabby chic. And so, it's like the buildings haven't been updated there in quite some time because of that. Because once you start doing reconstruction that is a certain percentage of the value, you have to then get in conformity and do all kinds of other upgrades that just make it it's not viable. It's not an option. It's just too expensive.
So for you to do the upgrades that you'd wish to do, how many units would be in there? You
14.
currently have 10, you'd have 14, but they'd all be the 2 expanded.
It would be 12 and 2. So the idea would be going from 7 and 3
Okay.
To 12 and 2.
Got it. Okay. And then would that require like a zoning change or a variance? And how many
that's what we're
variances would
trying
you
to.
need?
So we've gotten the support of the community. They've been great. We've incorporated a lot of their feedback. So the community's on board in general. We've talked to the neighbors, the churches, the Spady Museum, a lot of the community organizations. It's really then, how does this fit within zoning? You can't make it, there's a real concern with, hey, we don't want this everywhere until we prove out, quote, the concept. So, a more expanded type of MCHU. So the question is, do we have a conditional use zoning that, would make it only this and only a few other properties in the city? Or is it what's called an SAD, Special Activities District, which is kind of this set aside to experiment with different types of zoning concepts?
And that's usually for a larger parcel, correct?
Yeah, so that's another beauty of, so a lot of times when housing is built, the big concern is, well, how much parking? Well, this form of housing doesn't require a lot of parking because these people don't make a lot of money and most of them can't afford cars. So we need to make sure these units are near public transportation, grocery store, laundromat, kind of the basic necessities of life. And it only requires 0.2, 0.25 acres, so it doesn't require massive parcels. And one of the big concerns also, and again, I would say a legitimate concern, is you don't want co-op city of, MCHUs, and that's not what we're advocating. We want, let's sprinkle this around, no more than 24 in a parcel. We're only requesting 14. But you don't want to have, a high concentration of low-income housing. We found historically that model doesn't work. But the need is still there, so what do we do?
Because then it turns into like an area that people call slums or something,
Yeah,
if it's all
right.
the same. What is, it was just in my brain, what is you mentioned about like boarding houses. What's the difference between this and a boarding house?
Well, first of all, there will be regulation. So the city will be coming in twice a year to inspect it, make sure it's according to code. There's a proper vetting process.
Is because of
That's what we're, basically one of the conditions we would advocate putting in. So we're putting in our own, or recommending our own regulatory regime here. So you don't often get developers and investors saying, "Hey, regulate us." Yeah, right.
Well, you
right.
almost have to.
Yeah, exactly. You want people comfortable with.
Who would be giving these city inspections? Would it be the housing authority? That's not city.
Well, yeah, I mean, it could be zoning, like code enforcement or something like that. So there would be impact fees to pay for it. So it's not just like a tax, a cost. It's a profit center as well. More taxation, higher values.
So in college, we split bedroom, or not bathrooms, right? We shared bathrooms. And I work on a cruise ship and we did, but it was like the women's bathroom or the boys' bathroom. And then we usually had somebody cleaned it, right?
Right.
I mean, we didn't have to, although we tried.
Yeah, so one of the requirements also we would put in is there would have to be a representative from the management company or the ownership to live there. So to be the representative, to be responsible. There are also, again, those inspections would be the way to make sure that the cleanliness is there. I mean, we've always, we're proud of the job we've done to keep it clean and keep it orderly. In fact, we're having an open house this June 24th. Serving free breakfast to the community. It's at 105 Northwest 5th Avenue in Delray Beach. Chef Maureen Watson will be cooking up breakfast, and we'll also be, just showing people what these units look like. They can meet some of the tenants, and we want people to see this. This is not something to. It's at 9 a.m. to 11 a.m.
9 to 11. Okay. All right. Well, I've seen it, but maybe I'll come by for breakfast.
Just pay
for it.
Yeah, you get there early because Maureen has a reputation. People will come early to go. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad everybody's getting an eye on it. I mean, it already exists. Like you said, it's been there for 60 years, but you want to make it better.
Well, better, and also just to make, put in what we call a regime or a regimen that people are comfortable with, to make sure it's stable. Because this is an idea bigger than this one property, and we have already been in front of the commission with more grandiose ideas of let's try and not put it everywhere, but have a broader application of this because there is such a need, and that was rejected. And so it's like, look, okay, let's get something that'll prove out, make people comfortable with it, show that it can be done, and then in a much slower pace.
So many things that if you can show on a small basis, on a one-time basis, that it works very, very well, other towns do open up their ideas to that.
Right.
So.
And I mean, we spoke to one city official and said, hey, we like the idea of Delray being a pioneer. It's just that we don't think there would be acceptance of the public to make this widespread right away. You have to get people comfortable with it. And so that's point well taken. So that's what we're going for.
Yeah, it sounds like you have a mountain to climb,
Yeah.
truthfully.
Yeah. Yep.
Good for you.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can't imagine how severely we've been hammered by people in certain neighborhoods and certain other towns, and it's, you want to give up, but I'm not going to, try and deceive, and it is a very profitable business model. But we're helping people at the same time, so I'm not going to apologize. Yeah, it's like the ultimate win-win.
Well, I did a show on housing, and I am told that there's not one solution. There's got to be people that think outside of the box and give several solutions. And there's no housing voucher necessarily that these people are using, right?
Right. I mean, they may, but that's not, so our option doesn't require government subsidies or tax breaks to us as a developer.
Okay.
Some of the tenants can and do get them, but we have one tenant that's making $910 a month.
Okay.
He can afford to live there. That's just a little over 10 grand a year. So, people need to recalibrate their mentality of what is acceptable to some people. It's not for everybody, but when you're faced with a choice of living out of your car or living on the street or slumming a place to live or having a roof over your head and nice air conditioning and a private bathroom that you can use, you're willing to, living in a rooming house situation. A lot of people, and there's this, the video about I mean, two of those tenants that we're gonna, that we'll introduce you to, they've been there for over 5 years and they're happy with it. So it's a long-term solution to a problem that nobody addresses.
People don't want to see.
Yeah, well,
I do know that, like in some drug rehab places, people are sharing a room, four people to a room, and a bathroom, and they're paying their insurance is paying $12,000.
Oh yeah. Well, and I mean, you think about all the precedents now. Right now, there's sober homes. Right. There's spousal abuse places that have the same type of living arrangements, very high density. There's, again, the unregulated rooming houses. The difference, our option will require inspections regularly. It will require impact fees. It will have a higher tax revenue because it will increase the value of that property. I love this anecdote that I just have to tell you about. So another city official, he said, we have so many options. I mean, we have all these affordable housing. 1 through 10, this place is like 10th. I was like, okay, of the 1 through 9, how many are addressed to the people making less than $35,000? None.
Right.
Not one. So they're all, again, for the firemen, the teachers, all those.
Which is all needed.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to be the guy making $900 a month, but somebody's there.
1 in 5.
Wow.
1 in 5 in our community.
That's really surprises me.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you're trying to come up with some answers. Feels like you've got a big fight ahead of you, but good luck to you. We are going to show the video, but I wanted to thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
And you guys come out on the 24th of June.
Correct.
Between 9 and 11 at, what is the address, please?
105 Northwest 5th Avenue in Delray Beach.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Judy.
All right. I'm Judy Malika with Friends of Delray. Please, let your voices be heard, get engaged, talk with neighbors, and attend city meetings. And watch for our next podcast or video. We believe Delray is at its best when we're stronger together. Thank you for joining Friends of Delray, addressing the relevant issues facing our community. Follow us on Facebook and YouTube, and please sign up for our newsletter at our website, friendsofdelray.us. We believe Delray is at its best when we work together.